Hello, Jack Middleton, the Empowered Vegan here, and in this video, I am with Gage Corlett of Sharp Knife Shop in Hamilton, and we're gonna be talking about how to properly approach buying a good knife. Hello, Jack Middleton, the Empowered Vegan here, and for the next 3 weeks, I have a special video series coming up for you where I interview Gage Corlett of Sharp Knife Shop in Hamilton. Now, Gage's store is a special knife shop because they specialize in high-quality Japanese cutlery. So knives and other accessories that are useful for anybody from the home cook all the way up to a professional chef. Now, Gage is an expert when it comes to handling Japanese cutlery as well as sharpening and taking care of your tools. So over the next few weeks, we're going to interview him about the basics on how to not only purchase a knife and look for a knife that suits you, but also how to sharpen a knife and how to care for a knife of a really high quality. So I'm super excited to bring this video series to you. And without further ado, here is Gage Corlett. So Gage, welcome to the channel.
Thanks for having me, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I've been anticipating this video series. Like I said earlier today, you were on my list of people to talk to about setting something up for months. So I'm super glad that we're here doing this today. And I want to ask you, first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background? What has brought you to owning a knife shop?
Sure. So I was a cook and a chef for about 10 years, the past decade or so. I've traveled all over the world cooking. I've worked in Chicago for a number of years, worked overseas in Oslo, Norway, and spent some time traveling around Europe, France, Spain, England. And most recently was the chef of a restaurant here in Hamilton called Neek, which is just up on the corner of James and Vine. I was really excited when I moved to Hamilton about the growing food scene here, but was disappointed when I wasn't able to find a store that was focused towards the chef or the food enthusiast. There was nowhere to go where you could check out cool knives and other sort of interesting gadgets and kitchen wares. So I took it upon myself to change that, and in 2017, December, I opened the doors of Sharp, and now over a year later, I'm still here, so things are going well.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And I gotta say, as a native Hamiltonian, we're really happy to have you.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here too. Yeah, very excited.
Right on. So tell us a little bit about what kind of stuff do you sell here? I mean, obviously it's knives, but I'm led to believe it's a certain type of knife.
Yeah, so as you alluded to, I carry only Japanese cutlery here. I have one exception, and that is a Canadian-made knife just outside of Brampton. But for the most part, everything is Japanese, handmade. The difference between, say, a handmade Japanese knife and a mass-produced German knife, there are many. The first and foremost for me is the steel that's used to produce the knife. So typically Japanese knives are made from carbon steels or very high quality stainless steels that are going to perform better in three ways. One, they are going to be sharper in general. They are two, going to hold their edge a lot longer. And thirdly, they are going to be a lot easier to sharpen as well. I also do prefer the feel and the balance of a Japanese knife over a German knife, but that is largely due to personal preference. So everyone's going to be kind of different, but that is why I've tried to curate a selection of knives that is different in terms of their feel and balance and aesthetic as well.
So your preference is obviously Japanese. It sounds like there's some good reasons for that.
Yeah.
So say somebody was coming in or was looking to buy a knife and they're ready to kind of spend money on something that is a little bit higher quality. What are the things that someone should know when they're coming to make that purchase?
So first and foremost for me is the level of maintenance that you'd be comfortable handling. So as I said, carbon steels are typically used to make Japanese knives. Carbon steels are, like we said earlier, easier to sharpen, get sharper, stay sharper. Their one and only downfall in my mind is the maintenance required when using one. If you are to leave your knife wet or say covered in the juice of an onion or a tomato or something with a high level of acid, it will tarnish the blade and possibly lead to rust over time. It is as simple as just wiping your knife down as soon as you're done with it. So again, as I said, I don't say it to scare anyone, but I just make them aware that, you know, wiping your knife down is very important, and making sure it stays dry is very important as well. There's many other things that I would say come into play when deciding on a knife. First and foremost for me is the way it feels in your hand, right? I kind of liken it to Harry Potter going to find his wand in the Harry Potter series. You know, I encourage people to come in, pick up as many knives as they can and get a feel for what they like. Every knife is going to have a different balance to it. Some are a little bit heavier in the blade, some are a little bit heavier in the handle. I see a lot on YouTube people talking about the exact way a knife needs to be balanced, and I don't subscribe to that. I find that every person is different, every knife is a little bit different, and there is a knife out there for everyone. So picking up knives and seeing how they feel in your hand is the best way to decide, taking into consideration the maintenance required if you do find a knife that feels good in your hand. Some other things that you can take into account are the style of handle that it has. So the Japanese style handle or the Wa handle is typically either oval, octagonal, or D-shaped, made from woods such as chestnut, walnut, rosewood, and are typically a little bit larger than the traditional Western style handle, or as it's known in the Japanese cutlery world, the Yo handle. A lot of people are a little bit timid or apprehensive towards the Japanese Wa handle at first, but I find that the more and more of them they put in their hand, the more they seem to enjoy them. With exceptions, obviously, and there's no advantage to a Wa handle over a Yo handle. In my personal opinion, it's largely just due to personal preference.
You said something interesting earlier to me, which was because I was asking you about the difference between Wa and Yo handles, and
Sure.
And you'd said that it was largely personal preference, but you said that you have a preference for what knives you buy with a Wa and what knives you buy with a Yo. What was that distinction?
For the most part, I do prefer the Wa style handle, the Japanese style handle. I just find that it fills up my hand a little bit more. I just find it more comfortable. There are exceptions to that, obviously. The petty knife or this style of knife right here, I prefer to get one with a Yo style handle on it. I like that the butt of the knife has a little bit of a hook on it, so especially with a petty knife, I tend to use them for smaller, more intricate tasks where I'm extending my index finger and pointing so that I feel more control over the tip of the knife. And when I'm extending my index finger, it just feels more comfortable for me to have that little hook to rest my pinky on. It just feels like I have more control over the knife. But using anything else, so a nikiri, like a vegetable chopping knife, or a gyoto, a chef's knife, I prefer that wa style handle. It just feels more comfortable for me.
So you mentioned a little bit about carbon steel. Now, what are the main differences between, say, stainless steel versus carbon steel?
So carbon steel is iron and carbon. Carbon is what's going to rust and cause your knife to change colors. What they do with stainless steel is add various elements to it to help prevent rust from happening. Stainless steel knives are stainless. They are not completely immune from staining or rusting, but they are much more resilient to it than a carbon steel knife that does not have those additional elements added to it.
So when someone's coming to purchase a knife, what do they need to know about the different types of knives that are available?
The Japanese are really good at coming up with different styles of knives for every particular sort of task or circumstance. Everyone's got different needs at home, but there are knives that are more versatile than others, and some that are more specialized than others. So let's go through the different types of knives, generally speaking, which are the most popular, and I'll tell you a little bit about each one and how it is that we use them. So we'll start off from smallest and go up to largest. So starting with a petty knife. Petty knives range in size from 110 millimeters up to 150 or so. They look sort of like a paring knife that's just a little bit longer. They're great for all the smaller, more intricate tasks, great for working off the board in your hands. So let's say, for instance, we're cutting up shallots or garlic or something small like that. They're great for that. They're also great for trimming Brussels sprouts, taking the tops off strawberries, anything else that you might find yourself wanting to work in your hand off the board. I liken it to home chefs in the sense that you may need something you want to leave out for the entire day and have accessible always. But again, you don't want something that's going to take up a ton of space, but something that you can, for instance, cut up fruit in the morning for breakfast, slice a tomato or something, cut a sandwich in half for lunch, and then you break out the larger knives for dinner. Getting into something a little bit larger, let's talk about the santoku next. Santoku, translated to English, means three virtues, which refers to slicing, dicing, and chopping, or meat, fish, and vegetables, depending on who you talk to. I'm sure there's other variations out there as well. They are probably the most popular knife in home kitchens in Japan because of their versatility and their ease of use. So they are a little bit shorter than the average Western chef's knife, which is typically in the 8-inch range. A santoku is roughly around 6 inches in length. Perfect for this video, for the vegans out there, is the nikiri, which translates to thin blade in English, and they are especially designed for chopping vegetables. So they've got a nice tall blade from the edge, cutting edge, to the spine, which gives you lots of space on your knuckles for that up and down chopping motion that you use when cutting up vegetables. You can flip it over and use the spine, the nice flat spine, to scrape stuff together. And then again, because of the large square surface area, they're great for scooping stuff up and moving it around with ease. Next, we'll go into the gyoto, which is the Japanese equivalent of the chef's knife. They range anywhere from 180 millimeters up to like over 300 millimeters. I would argue that the gyoto is the most versatile knife in the kitchen. Most professionals would argue that as well. They're great for slicing meat because of their added length. They're still good at some butchery tasks, breaking down larger fish, chopping up vegetables, and because they have a bit more, still that pointed, aggressive tip on them, they're good for the smaller, intricate stuff as well. So if you can handle that larger blade, it does lend itself well to that extra versatility. And then finally, we'll talk about the tsujihiki, or in English, the flesh slicer. Quite aptly named, they are for just that, slicing flesh. So whether that be fish, that roast beef on Sunday nights, or that turkey, that roast turkey on Christmas, if you're looking to achieve those nice perfect slices, the long slender blade is going to allow you to make those long drawing strokes, avoid any sawing motion, and avoid any tearing in the meat as you cut through. once you understand the level of maintenance that you can handle, once you find something that feels good in your hand, then you can start to think about the aesthetics of the knife. So I would still argue is very important. You want something that you're going to be excited about using, and having a cool looking knife is going to make you super excited to go use it, as well as the performance of the knife. Once you figure out the level of maintenance that you can handle, once you figure out what knife feels good and what knife feels comfortable for you to use, then you can start thinking about the aesthetics of the knife. I would still say it's very important because you want something that looks cool, that's going to make you want to get in there and use it every day. I would, however, argue the aesthetics are sort of less important than the other points that we've talked about, as they don't contribute to the performance or the comfort of the knife in your hand.
Is there any other advice that you would give to somebody who was looking to purchase a knife?
Just have an open mind. Like I said, a lot of people have purchased knives in the past just through a piece of glass or picking up a plastic container that contains the knife. So what you're used to now might not actually be what you find most comfortable. It's become more comfortable for you over time because that's what you've been using for the past 5 to 10 years. But you may find that your preferences change based on just touching and feeling a whole bunch of different knives. So have an open mind, be ready and willing to have your preferences changed once you pick up a bunch of different stuff.
I hope you enjoyed this insightful video on how to purchase a knife. What are the factors and things you need to know when choosing from the massive selection of knives out there? And next week, we're going to be talking about how to properly sharpen your knife. And we're actually going to get Gage to take one of my knives and put a beautiful new edge on it. And he's going to break down the process for you so that you can actually go out, purchase a stone, bring it home, and sharpen your knives yourselves. So stay tuned for that video, and I will see you next week.